Hey, hope you're having a great day. Alex Kirshner here, back to pick another week of college football games for OddsChecker. I feel good because I went 10-4 picking college football games last week. That was up against 5-0 in the NFL, which was another story. I don't think I'm going to go 10-4 every single week, to be fully honest with you. I don't think I'm going to return 37% on my investment every single week. It was a great week. It's good to be hot, but I think that the most important thing, and the reason why we can keep making progress together, even if we don't go 10-4 every single week, is because we're looking at games where we think we can find value, where we think in this very bizarre time, where we might be able to see some things that are not fully reflected in lines and totals, and have a good process and pick games wisely. And one of the opportunities that I see, and where I'll start us off this week for week 3 in college football, is with the team that I was on last week, which is Texas State against ULM. Last week I picked ULM's game against Army, and I picked against ULM against the spread with a 2-touchdown and change spread because ULM's had a lot of things going on. This week I'm going to pick Texas State as a 5.5-point favorite against ULM. Texas State minus 5.5. The reason for that is that ULM has been through just a ton lately in the way of things that are a lot more important, frankly, than football. A devastating hurricane was in their region. They had a coronavirus cluster in their program that disrupted them quite a bit. Their defensive coordinator left the program shortly before the season started, which is a much different kind of disruption, but still one that can really get in the way of a football team's preparation. And this is a team that against Army just looked like it had nothing. Looked like it had understandably just had a lot drained from it and was not in position to play well against any kind of decent football team. I think that Texas State is obviously not nearly as good as Army. I mean, this is an 0-2 team that has lost twice at home. Might feel like a weird time to be laying points with a team like that. But I think context matters here. And I think that in some respects, Texas State might be a bit undervalued by sports books and by odds makers at this time. On the one hand, Texas State almost beat SMU, which is one of the better programs at this point in the group of 5 a couple of weeks ago. And they lost to UTSA, which has been a really bad program last week. But that was a loss in a couple of overtimes that would have been different if any number of things had gone differently. Brady McBride, the new quarterback at Texas State, was not playing in that game, reportedly because of COVID protocols. My understanding is that he was back at practice this week. Whether he's playing or not, and I suspect he is, at less than a touchdown, given everything that's gone on with ULM, and given that Texas State has shown signs of being a much better team than an 0-2 team at home. I like them even on the road against the Warhawks, and I feel good about finding that value at 5.5. In the ACC this week, which is the site of certainly the most high-profile conference games going on right now, Louisville is a 2.5-point favorite at home against Miami, and I do like the Cardinals at that number. I think Louisville's a better team than Miami. There is some disagreement about that if you go between some of my favorite analytic projection systems. Bill Connolly's SP Plus has Miami, I think, as a marginally better team. ESPN's Football Power Index has Louisville as a more significantly better team. My eye test from watching both of these teams last week, and I had bets in on both their games that paid out last week, was that Louisville just looked a bit better to me against Western Kentucky than Miami did against UAB. They looked sharper. It wasn't a disaster for Miami by any stretch. I think De'Aaron King, the new quarterback there, the transfer from Houston, is a great talent. I think he's going to have a good year. I think Miami's defense is going to be good. But I think Louisville's offense is just extremely impressive. Between Michael Cunningham, the quarterback, Javian Hawkins, the running back, Tutu Atwell, one of the best receivers in the country, that is as good a trio of quarterback and a couple skill guys as I think we're going to see anywhere in college football this year. And I think that given I'm able to find Louisville as less than a field goal favorite at home against a team that I think they're a little bit better than, and even if it's about even, I just feel really good about going with the Cardinals here. This is a team that I believed in a lot really since the spring. I think Scott Satterfield's one of the best coaches in the country, and I think they're going to win this game, and I think they're going to win it by at least a field goal. So I feel good about Louisville being able to get them at less than a field goal as the favorite. Elsewhere in the ACC, I like Georgia Tech this week as a 7.5-point underdog playing against UCF. That's not at all a knock on UCF, which has been one of the best programs in the country the last few years, which was closer than a lot of people probably realized to going undefeated again last year, even though they lost a few games. I just like Georgia Tech's quarterback situation a lot. I think their new quarterback, Sims, looked fantastic against Florida State. You're sort of grading on a curve there because Georgia Tech's offense for the last long time under Paul Johnson was not really trying to air the ball out. And last year under Jeff Collins, they were still washing out a lot of that triple option. So the offense looked, I think, as you would expect, pretty bad. But I think that right now, Georgia Tech's defense looks solid, looked very good against Florida State. It was hard to tell how much of that was on Florida State and how much of it was Georgia Tech. And I just think the offense looks a lot more modern, looks good, looks like it's going to move the ball through the air better than, of course, you'd be accustomed to of Georgia Tech teams, given their style of play the last, 5-10 years. And given all that, and then I'm able to find Georgia Tech at home at more than a touchdown's worth of cushion, I'm going to take the points, and I'm going to take the Yellow Jackets 7.5 and feel good about it. And I think if you can find them at better than a touchdown, I think that's good value. Elsewhere in the ACC, a game that is not really exciting in any way, but I do think we can find value in, is NC State playing Wake Forest. I like the Wolfpack as 2.5-point favorites at home this week, mainly based on Wake Forest just looking even a little bit more lifeless than I expected against Clemson, which is weird to say because they did cover a spread that was in the low 30s, but Clemson would have won that game, 50, 60 to nothing if Clemson had actually wanted to do that. And Wake's offense just looked completely inept. Even the kicking game looked pretty bad. Jamie Newman, the quarterback who made a lot of waves there last year, is not walking through that door. He transferred to Georgia and then declared for the NFL draft. I just don't think Wake has a lot going for it, and I don't think that NC State does either. But I think at worst for NC State, this is a roughly even matchup, and it's being played in Raleigh. And we've talked a bit before in this space about how pegging home field advantage is going to be pretty hard this year with various crowd restrictions in place. That's very much true, but I think that at less than a field goal, I'm comfortable laying points with NC State. I think that they can win that game by a field goal. I'm holding out some hope because I haven't seen NC State yet this year, that they could put some things together on offense with a decent quarterback situation that Wake just can't. And there's enough there for me to like the Pack at 2.5-point favorites. Outside of the ACC now, and actually over to the American, I have Tulane this week at home as a 7-point favorite against Navy. I did give myself a bit of pause here because Navy is a hard program to figure out right now. Navy looked just unspeakably horrendous. Like I'm taken aback thinking about how bad they looked a couple weeks ago against BYU. It was one of the worst performances. And I think, in fact, Ken Niumatalolo, Navy's coach, said it was their worst performance since he'd been coach there, which has been a long time now. I think Navy's going to be better. My understanding is that COVID protocols had Navy barely practicing tackling up until that game, and it looked like it. But they were just physically overwhelmed by BYU. And Tulane is not as big and beefy as BYU, but they do have a really sound running game, have for a while under Willie Fritz, a really good coach who just got an extension there. So given that, and this is right on the number at 7 points, I think if you can find Tulane as less than a 7-point favorite, you should absolutely take it. But I think that even just at 7 on the number, I feel okay about it because Navy has to be just so many worlds better than it was against BYU. It needs to be just a complete reorientation of everything about the way Navy looked. And maybe Navy has had the world's greatest 2 weeks of practice and will come out and will play well against Tulane's running game, and this will look like a stupid pick. But I think that's a lot to ask after a bizarre offseason like we've talked about. And for that reason, and the game being in New Orleans, I like Tulane as a 7-point favorite. And I want to close out this week with what I see as a great value opportunity if you're able to go and find this line. I have my eyes on the SMU at North Texas game, which is being played just north of Dallas, of course, at UNT Stadium in Denton. The total at Caesars, and maybe you'll be able to find something similar to this, is 70 points in this game. I would smash the under on that 70. More commonly, I think we're seeing totals that are 60. Which is a wild difference. You don't see a lot of places where, you'd have a difference of 10 points between the totals. If you can get over to Caesars, if that's legal in your jurisdiction, or if you can find a 70-point total for this game anywhere else, which I would urge you to use the tools on this website on OddsChecker to help you out. If you can get 70 and you can go under, that is just fantastic. fantastic value for you. I don't think SMU is going to score 40 points in this game. I think SMU's offense, particularly playing on the road, particularly not looking quite as explosive as it did last year, is not going to score 40-ish points. And even if they do you really think that North Texas, in its first game in like 4 years without Mason Fine, who was the program cornerstone quarterback there, do you really think North Texas would score 30? Do you think it's going to be a 40-30 game? I don't see it. I mean, anything's possible. And they do say that everything is bigger in Texas, maybe, and that's including the point total sometimes. But I don't see it. I think there's great value if you can find that line and find that total, at around 70 points. Even at around 60, I'd think about taking the under. But if you can get it in the upper 60s or at 70, as you can right now, as I'm recording this video at Caesars, under. So thanks for bearing with me this week. I hope that you've enjoyed this, found it informative. Again, we're off to a 10-4 start. If we can go 10-4 every week, or that same winning percentage, that would be tremendous. We're not going to get down if we don't go 10-4, but we are going to try to keep having a good process, keep finding value, and together we will head to the bakery and make this bread together all season. Have a great one. Thanks for watching.